The first job I ever had, I worked there for a week and a half, and I got fired because I got caught smoking pot in the freezer.
In the freezer?
Well, I was nose blind to it, so I thought that people wouldn't be able to
Oh.
smell it in the cold. I thought for whatever reason, maybe the cold. And I just walked out of this freezer with a big cloud of cold smoke with me, like, oh, the ice will just completely take the smell away.
Hey friends, it's your girl Emily Curl. Welcome back to my virtual studio. Today we're hanging out with a rising star in the country music community. We have Jelly Roll here with us. Jelly
Yeah,
Roll, so nice.
baby.
It's so nice to see you. First and foremost, can I call you Jelly? Do I call you Jelly Roll?
Yes,
What's the
jelly.
formal?
That's what everybody. That's what my mama calls me. My mama calls me
Jelly?
jelly. Yeah.
Jelly. I'm so happy to be talking with you because let me just say, you're a fan favorite at iHeart. People love you here.
Yes.
We're so excited about your music, so excited about this career. What have the past few months looked like for you? I feel like it has been insane.
It's been unreal. We ended our 22 at the Bridgestone Arena, which was in my hometown here in Nashville. I grew up here. Sold out the hometown arena. That same arena I've been going to since I was, knee high to a grasshopper. I've literally been going to that arena since Kermit the Frog was a tadpole. So to be able to headline it was just an absolutely unreal experience. And then I started this year, 2023. How I started this year was my first number one at country radio. So
Congratulations.
awesome.
That's huge. What was that
Yes.
feeling like?
It's the most prestigious thing that can happen as a songwriter in Nashville. Like the artist thing's a big thing too, like being, having a number one, but I just as a songwriter, it was just, my whole life you see these pictures of these big number one parties and these people celebrating these number ones here in Nashville at BMI or ASCAP or whatever. And I just always dreamed to do that. So it was really cool to be able to finally check that off.
That's amazing. Well, we want to get to know you a little bit better. So I thought today we could play a little game. It's called our 15 first. So I have 15 different scenarios, and you're going to tell me about the very first time you experienced them, the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Okay.
Question one. When was the very first time you went by Jelly Roll?
My mother. So she gave me the nickname Jelly Roll because I like Jelly Roll donuts. But I think the
Oh,
first time I actually went by it was right before I went into high school. My buddy One Arm Clay started calling me Jelly Roll.
One Arm
And
Clay was his
yep,
name?
yep, One Arm Clay. You won't believe it. He only had one arm. Is that crazy?
That's
He
crazy.
went up doing 20 years in prison, and he only had his right arm, and everybody in prison called him Lefty because he didn't have no left arm. But yeah, One Arm Clay named me Jelly Roll, and that's when I felt like it started to stick.
Okay, what about who was the very first person who encouraged you to chase this dream, chase your dream now?
I think the first person that really encouraged it was my mother.
Really?
She's the reason I got into music because how music affected her. So I would come and I would read my raps to her, and she'd just encourage me. And she's the first
Really?
one to encourage me because she's the first one I probably read a rap to. My brothers, my whole family though. I didn't have one family member who was like, get a job. I didn't have one person like that in my family.
But music was always a big part of your life, a big part of your family's life?
Big part of our life, not as a listener. So nobody was music in our family. In fact, we sounded like I didn't think I was a good singer because we all sounded so bad singing together. I mean, I just assumed I sounded like shit like the rest of them sounded. So come to find out it wasn't true. But yeah, we just loved music. My mother struggled with addiction and mental health
Mm.
issues in her younger years, and music was an escape for her. And as a very young man, I identified the power of music helping her with her trauma. And
Oh,
as a young
wow.
man, like didn't fully get it, but I was like, there's something that happens when she comes downstairs and listens to music. She didn't leave her room much. That she comes downstairs and listens to music. That there's something there. The music brings her downstairs. The music gets her out of her hole, and that's what I understood as a kid.
Wow. What was that first album that you can remember back that both you and your mom loved? Maybe you listened to together.
I don't remember it like album because she would play single songs. She was always flipping the vinyls or whatever.
Oh yeah, the little yeah.
Yeah, but I remember vividly songs like The Rose by Bette Midler. Oldies, a lot of oldies. Backfield in motion, that stuff. It's against the rules. That old oldies and Motown and a lot of old outlaw country. I remember the first time I heard "Looking for Trouble" and I found a son right down the barrel of a lawman gun, and I was like, "There's no way this is country music." And yeah, we had a lot of those moments.
So when was the first time you realized you could sing?
That is a loaded question. So here's the answer, Miss Emily.
Tell me.
I started to realize early when I would do like, I didn't realize there was a difference between singing and like doing melody stuff. So like I've been playing with melodies forever, but I just did it in like a real hip hop way. So it'd be like, there's a lot of jealousy, but life goes on. And I ain't even tripping 'cause the hate goes on. A lot of people mad 'cause I made it on my own. And I didn't feel like I was singing that though. I felt like that was just like, oh, I'm just kind of being melodic, you know? When so looking back at me, I was clearly trying to sing. I just wasn't confident enough, you know?
Yeah.
Look, I'd say around a song called Sunday Morning, I kind of squeezed my butt cheeks together and I was like, oh no, this sounds good, you know?
Well, it's crazy, Jelly, because you have such a powerful voice.
Mm. I
Like,
never
so to
knew it.
not recognize, yeah, to not
Yeah.
recognize that at the beginning is wild to me.
The problem is, and I didn't realize this until I got into the music business here, is a lot of these guys sing very quietly and their voice is in a textured way, right? You know, so it's like Elton John, well, I guess that's why they call it the blues. Time on my hands could be time spent with you. And I could see people that sing that way getting to practice a lot more, right? Because like I learned the way I thought I sounded good singing, like the whole house knew I was trying to sing. Like to this day, everybody who's ever tracked vocals for me says you are the loudest singer of anybody we've ever had sing. So it's like I was scared to practice. Even now, when I
Yes.
come up in my little room up here and I practice, the whole house knows I'm up here
It
working.
did
When
those.
I do
Do
my
you feel
hour vocals a day, the whole crib is like, oh, Dad's up there doing
they
the thing.
know?
Yep.
That's so funny. Do you feel like you have a loud speaking voice too?
Yeah, sometimes I have to be reminded of that, especially if I get excited. If I get excited, I have to get. I'm the guy that frequently has people put their hand on my leg. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Oh,
that
it's
guy.
like,
It's like, well, just it's gonna be okay. I'm like, yes, I'm excited just by nature.
oh my God. I love you so much. Just to make you laugh. Okay, what about let's go back. What's the first tattoo you ever got?
The first tattoo I ever got was right here. So you see that cross right
Oh, we
there?
got the cross right there.
Yep,
Okay.
it's
Yep.
since been colored in. This lady in my neighborhood died of AIDS, and her name was V. We call
Mm,
her Mama V, Veda Newcomb. So I put her name on my arm. I
Mama
had that since I was
V.
14. Yep.
Wow. And how many tattoos do you have now? Do you know?
Oh, I quit counting them things, man. Shit. I don't. How do you count them? But do you count the arms as one? Because there a
Yeah,
lot
I
of them are
guess it's
like
like there's
little.
a lot of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot of sticky notes, and then I just filled them in. So, lesson to
Mm.
the youth: if you're gonna get sleeves of tattoos, get with the right artist, spend the money. You know, people will spend thousands of dollars on clothes that they'll wear for a summer. If they want to try to haggle a tattoo artist down, get the right guy, spend the right money, and do a collective art piece.
So did the
It's not
same
what I
guy
did.
do? Oh, it's
No,
not what you did.
it's not what I
Oh,
did.
but that's what you
No,
wish you would have done. Okay.
for sure. Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, always. Okay, what's the very first job you ever had?
The first job I ever had was at a place called Compton's Foodland in Priest Lake. Compton's Foodland, I worked there for a week and a half, and I got fired because I got caught smoking pot in the freezer.
In the freezer?
Well, I was nose blind to it, so I thought that people wouldn't be able to
Oh,
smell it in the cold. I thought for whatever reason, maybe the cold. And I just walked out
I
of this
think
freezer
that's
with a
logic.
big cloud of cold smoke with me, like, oh, the ice will just completely take the smell away. And that was my first and only job I ever had.
That's so funny. Okay, so then obviously you're an artist. What about the first time you performed on stage?
I did my first show by myself at a place called the Playing Field on Antioch Pike in Antioch, Tennessee, the neighborhood where I'm from. My whole
Mm-hmm.
family came out. I think I sold like 47 tickets, and it was awesome. I'll never forget it. It was so cool. I stood at the door and accepted the money and the tickets from everybody myself.
Wow.
Yep, want to make sure I got paid.
What do you think is our going on our next one is your first big career break? What do you think is that moment that changed things for you? What was that
Um,
maybe that very first one that you felt like, okay, I'm in the right direction?
the first one that I felt like I was in the right direction was selling out some clubs here in town. Like I put like 1,000 people at a bar. This was 12, 13 years ago, by the way. I put 1,000 people at a bar. And I was like, there's something special about this. There's no reason that 1,000 people should be standing in line to see me play at a bar. And then it was just small little tipping points that gained ground along the way. The song Smoking Section was kind of me coming back around and really finding myself. The album Addiction Kills was a turning point for me. It was the first time that the music matched the look.
Mm.
Because I always made it. It always. I'm such a jovial personality, but my music's so dark because it's kind of where I exercise my demons. So
Huh. Oh,
I
that's
would try
interesting.
to paint this really dark music in a really light way because I'm such a lighthearted person, like cartoon graphics or something or whatever. But yeah, these were all big moments. But the biggest one ever was "Save Me" because it's what got the attention of the record label, and that was it. "Save Me" was my viral moment in life. That was my true to life, 150 million views on YouTube. Just fucking
And
everything changed in a
and that
fucking
was and that was when? What year was that?
2020, in the middle of the
2020.
pandemic. I dropped "Save Me" in the smack dab the middle of the pandemic. I started meeting with the label in the middle of the pandemic, and we didn't get the deal across the line until 2021.
It's insane. So you've had all this success, but I feel like anytime you talk to an artist, it's always a back and forth. It's a journey. So that goes to our next one. When was the first time you ever had a doubt that maybe this wasn't for you or this wasn't going to be like the route that you were going to take? Or did you have one?
No, I had a few. Um, Along the way, I did anything it took to make it, and I'm not proud of a lot of the decisions I made when I was young.
Mm.
Not limited to selling drugs, stealing, finding investors, never being able to pay them back because the music didn't work, and I just was riddled with all of these kind of broken situations along the way, and I just felt like I'd hurt so many people even just trying to make it. And I was ready to give up, and I'd posted a big post about it on Facebook, and I'd went and sat down with my father, and my father looked me in the eye and he said, "Jason, this is probably 10 years ago." I'd say Bailey was probably almost 5, my daughter. And he said, "Jason, if you'd have put this much time and energy into being a doctor, you'd be going into your final 2 years of med school right now." He's like, "Why would you back out right now?" He said, "There's no way a man can work as hard as you've worked at this and it not work." So I was like, and I went home still like, well, I still don't have no money to cut nothing. And a lady named Michelle Justice from Columbus, Ohio, had sent me a message when she seen my message and said, "Hey, I run a tow lot down here. Why don't you just record an album? I'll pay for it." And I said, "Michelle, this is why I don't want to do this. People keep offering. I owe hundreds of thousands of dollars to people along the way that have paid for projects that didn't work." She said, "Well, let's just throw one Hail Mary at it. Just look at it as a gift. If you pay me back, cool. If not, just take 10 grand and go try to record something." And I made a promise to God that if that didn't work and I couldn't pay that lady back, that I would quit making music. And I put out a project called The Biggest Loser. We sold like 10, 20,000 copies of it, made a few $100,000. Michelle's still one of the closest people in my life to this day. 10 years later, her name's Mickey. And Mickey still gets a check from 35% of that project every single month.
Jelly.
Sorry, probably way
That
more of
is
an answer than you
full.
wanted.
I no, I'm so that is like full body chills.
Yep,
That
that was my moment. That was the moment where I was like, and I've went back to pay back most of those people along the way. By the way, most of them.
can I just say, this is so refreshing. I just so appreciate your honesty with that too, of like of the journey, because it's not easy and there's so many things that go into being an artist. And what a story. I love that Mickey is still a part of your life and a part of
Yep.
that story.
I'll see Mickey this week. I got a
Oh
show
my,
in the Midwest. She comes anywhere within 3 hours of Columbus, where she's from. She comes to see me.
wow. Oh my God. That's amazing, Jelly. Thank you for telling that story. Because then let's go on to our next one.
Exclusive,
First,
by the way. I think I've only told that story here.
really?
Yeah, so
No,
send me the clip. iHeartRadio, send me the clip of that one, please, Mickey. That'll tickle Mickey Pink.
oh my gosh. No, thank you for sharing that story. I mean, I think it's so cool too about like your dad saying that about like med school. And it takes a long time to honor that craft. It takes a
Mm-hmm.
long time. And I've never heard it told in those terms before. I'm just so happy for you, Jelly, because then our next one is who was the very first call you made when you realized that you had a number one song?
Oh, my wife. I always call her first. She's always the first person I call. So,
What
and I
was her
think
reaction?
oh, she was ecstatic. The only thing about it is, and this is inside how the sausage is made. The way the music business works is you kind of know you have a chance of going number one a couple weeks before it happens. And there's a kind of a system in place. So it takes a little bit of the juice out of it. But it's also like the anxiety is the real story about the number one. because even when they call you and you're in the top five and they're like, we think it's going to happen, and if it is going to happen, it's going to happen on this date, right? Because they look at metrics and whatever. I don't know how it works. I'm so
So
confused.
what do you clear your schedule? You're like, okay.
What you do is your butthole puckers and you get anxiety, create ulcers for 3 4 weeks watching the chart, because then you start getting obsessed and you're like, you go down a couple spins and then back up and you're like, it's such an
Come
emotional roller
on.
coaster. And then I'm involved in the drama, so like this station dropped you in the last minute because you've been in power for this long, and there's so many just crazy things. So it was just, to call her was more of like a sigh of relief. Like at that point you're just like, we actually did it. Like that was the moment that you were like, oh, you could let your shoulders down. You could be like, oh, okay, cool. It actually got across the finish
Yeah,
line.
it actually happened.
Yeah. And now I'm doing
Um,
it with the new song, and I'm in the 30s and I'm checking every week and just
oh, I
stomach
bet.
and knots. Then you watch somebody skip over you or something, and you're like, what is happening? It's so scary.
It's so funny. That's so funny. A roller coaster. Okay, well, let's go. You mentioned your wife. So tell me about the very first time you met your wife.
Oh, we were at a bar in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Really?
Yeah, baby, we met the old school way. It might as well have been Aldi or the grocery store. I mean, it was that old school. Um, yeah, we bumped into each other at a bar. Acquaintance of mine who worked on my tour at the time had knew the man that she was with at the time, and I didn't know him, but I was familiar with him. I knew some of his reputation, and we hit it off. I mean, I felt an instant connection. It's just almost like scarily instantly connected. Platonically, of course. She was in a relationship, but I knew that relationship wasn't no good for her, and she did too. And we just kind of maintained a really light friendship. We didn't talk a lot. We just kind of loose friends. And the man she was with was abusive, and he ended up going to prison for something
Oh,
unrelated to the abuse.
wow.
And she reached out and she was like, "Hey, you remember me, don't you?" I was like, "Of course. Every second of every day, almost, I think about you. What are you doing?" Like, well, this, my man, whatever, da. And I was like, well, maybe we can hang out. And we did, and it was still plutonic. And she kind of helped me. I was fixing to have to get custody of Bailey, my daughter, and yeah, that's it. All went there. But yeah, we met at a bar.
Wow. And you
Yep,
guys been together how long now?
almost 7 years. Married almost 7.
Married almost 7.
Yeah,
Okay.
so almost 8. We jumped into it quick. We jumped straight in. We didn't
I
want to.
love it.
I tell people, do it, dude. Don't overthink that stuff. Go
I
for it.
said yes, especially if you
Jump
know from
in.
the first meeting.
In my defense, I was in my early 30s too, so it wasn't like I was in my
Yeah,
mid 20s and made that
right.
wild leap. But yeah,
What about the first time you became a dad?
the first time I became a dad, oh
Yeah.
man, I was incarcerated when Bailey was born, and the guard delivered that news to me. It changed my whole life, Emily. It was my Damascus Road experience. It was the moment in my life where I was like, everything, I've got to do something different right now.
Wow. My gosh,
That's a
Shelly,
true
these
story.
stories, I really
And
appreciate. And then
15 years later, that same little girl, me and my wife have had full custody of her for all 7 years we've been married. And I'm going to go pick her up from school right here in about an hour and a half.
what does she think of your music, of this success, of this life right now?
She loves it. She's happy for me and she's proud of me because she knows where I came from.
Yeah.
She also feels the effects of the schedule, and she's honest about that with me. And I
Yeah.
appreciate her honesty.
Yeah. How do you feel about like your life and the schedule right now? Like, are you enjoying it? Is it stressful? Is it tough?
I'm having a lot of fun. I mean, this is every problem I ever prayed for. Now, I just have to learn how to do better about saying yes to the things that matter and no to the things that don't. And I have to shift
Mm,
priorities about what matters.
yeah.
And I hope that doesn't hurt any relationships I've built over the last 2 years. But, I'm definitely going to try to prioritize my family this year.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, like, I feel like you've met a ton of people, you've gone on a lot of tours. Tell me about the first artist you've ever opened for.
The first artist I ever, so this is a loaded question too, because I came up in the bar circuit. So I opened up for Little White for years. I opened up for Haystack for years, even before Little White. I mean, we're talking about 20 years ago. Um, but the first time I went on a real tour, a band called Twisted, who was associated with the Insane Clown Posse, whoop whoop, and Twisted invited me and Lil White out. So me and White went out and did their Abominations tour, and it was the first time I got on a bus and did a real tour. And this was 2015, I'm gonna say. No, no, no,
2015.
13, 2013.
And you're about to go on tour again, right? Tour's
I
happening?
am. I am so excited about this tour. This is my first headlining arena amphitheater tour. It's called the Back Row Baptism Tour. I am nervous. I don't know if my headache was allergies yesterday or stress because it was
Oh,
like the
maybe it's
biggest
hers. Yeah.
announcement of my career. And you're just wonder like, dude, that's a lot of tickets, man. I mean, that's a lot of people, dude. It's like you don't feel that nervous when you're playing the Fox Theater. You're like, even if we only sell 2,500, it'll still look good. You're getting them arenas, man. You got to put some real asses in seats to fill them places up and make them look right. So
Make them look right. How do you prepare for tour? Like what goes into it
um,
for this one specifically?
well, this one I've actually been. So I started a journey to lose weight last year, and I lost probably 70 pounds last year.
Oh my gosh, Jelly,
Um,
that's huge.
yeah, thank you. I plan to lose another 70 before tour,
Wow.
which is in late July. Not another, probably another 50. Just trying to get healthy, trying to get healthier. I'll give you another breaking news clip here. I haven't drank in 2 months, and it's the first time I've went 2 months sober in my entire life.
Wow,
So it's the first time I've went more
congratulations.
than 2 weeks sober,
That
besides
is
when I was
huge.
incarcerated. So, and
Congrats, that
I'm
is
not,
huge.
yeah, and I'm not staying sober, and I don't intend to be this guy forever. But for where I'm at right now, I needed undivided focus. So
Yeah, I was gonna say what sparked it. Is it the music? Is it tour?
the music, I just finished my album. It's coming out in late May. Do a big media run in June. I feel like about June I'm going to start drinking and doing the media thing again because when you start doing that, I gotta have a drink or two. So I just
Yeah.
want to really focus on my health between now and then.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Now I
Well, I'm
feel
excited
like
for
you're my
Georgia.
therapist. I'm spilling
I
secrets.
know.
I'm
I'm
spilling
like,
all
wait a
kinds
minute.
of
I love
secrets.
this interview.
I
Okay, we
took a
have two.
7-minute interview and made it an hour and answered
I love it.
every question you didn't ask.
I have two more quick ones for you. When was the first time you met one of your heroes?
Believe it or not, the first time I probably met my hero was as young as when I met Haystack. He was a rapper from Nashville, and he was one of the first guys that gave me hope. I didn't know him from the Man on the Moon, but I knew he was from Nashville, and he was a white kid that rapped, and he was making a lot of noise doing it.
All right, last one for you, Jelly, is what was your very first I made it moment? So whatever that means to you.
My first really I made it moment was me and my wife buying this house in 2020. Because, I mean, we didn't own a house until we were both in our late 30s.
Wow.
So our first house wasn't a typical starter home. We were blessed. We got a really nice a house. And listen, I think I'm gonna end up moving from here, but if I never moved from here, best house ever. I mean,
Yeah.
I could fit every one of my childhood homes in this house. You know what I mean? So it's like it's unreal. So that was my first real like cool. Like I'll never have to work again moment. That was that moment for me, like short of me something terribly going wrong for me personally. I should that was my like and then I got to start making the kind of music that I really love because then you
Mm.
just have a complete financial freedom that's off your shoulders where you're like, dude,
Yeah.
I can swing for the mood. If I want to cut a country album and put it out, just that's what I want to do. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
and that was awesome. You never know what you want to do in life until you can afford to.
You are dropping bombs today. Damn.
Yeah, it's true.
And Jelly, I truly, this has just been so nice to like get to chat with you and talk with you. I'm so excited. I'm just so excited for you and everything that's
Thank you.
happening.
No, it's unreal, man. Thank y'all. Thank everybody over at iHeart. I don't know if you know it or not because you're on the countryside, but I was iHeart's Rock on the Verge artist last year. They
Yes, we
for
do know that. We
Yeah,
do
it's
know that.
unreal. I mean, iHeart has been, I mean that's the big dog. So, when you come out on the yard, you hope the big dog likes you if nobody else does. And I was blessed that iHeart's been a friend of mine.
I love it. Well, Jelly, we're so excited for you. Thank you so much for your time, for all the great stories and wisdom and advice. Like, I really, really genuinely love this interview.
No, thank you. I'm just glad we got to get to hang for a second.
Thanks for hanging out with us in Jelly Roll today. Make sure you check out all of his music on iHeart Country, and we will see you guys next time.